Why, hello there. It's me, Jeremy, your favorite bald dude telling you about Standard and Strange, a store and a brand with simple rules. Sell clothes they themselves would wear, manufacture it ethically, and build it to last. From boots made in Oregon to loop wheel garments made in Japan, find all the best clothes for your wardrobe at Standard and Strange. StandardandStrange.com. Another week, another pod. How you doing, folks? It's Blammo. I'm Jeremy Kirkland. It's yours truly. Just living my life, living my best life. I will say. You know, look, it's been a good week. I've been doing all my fall stuff, having a good time. But look, I'm not gonna lie. I got some confessions to make. You know, what a better place than just when I'm here talking to a wall. I really am on. I like to buy a lot of vinyl. I do. But that's not the confession. You know, I tend, look, I'll be honest, I tend to purchase a good amount of music. But here's the thing. This is it where it's at. My record player hasn't worked in years. And I'm just like, yeah, well, you know, I'll get a fix. And, you know, and when I do, I'll be so glad to have nabbed these LPs, right? Right? Look, I got to get it out there. I'm the guy who's buying vinyl, even though the record player isn't working. It's just, I need the physical media. I want the nice artwork. Look, I even went a bit nuts during the pandemic, like most folks. And I was just collecting wax. And during that mad season, there was one band that I became pretty obsessed with. They're called Nation of Language, and but coincidence, they're on the pod this week. But they're a 3-piece from Brooklyn, making some of the most dreamy synth-pop I've ever heard. And everything about them, it's just kind of perfect. Their music is incredible. The fits, oh man, you know, if you're going to be a rock star, you got to look like one. The fits are amazing. And sheesh, even the artwork on their records are great. They just kind of have this, you know, rock star vibe. So fast forward to a few months ago, and what do you know? New Nation of Language LP is dropping. So yes, I jumped at the opportunity to have them on the pod. And I got to say, Ian Devaney and Aidan Noell, they're just sweethearts. Like, I love chatting with bands that are just a little bit oblivious to how big they're getting. Seriously, like they're maybe almost even too down to earth. I mean, they were just great, and they totally went there with me. It was a good chat. But enough of me, all right? We chat their new album, Strange Disciple, getting emo on stage, riffing on the best audio gear, what they're listening to, loving Studio Ghibli, and lyrics versus music. All right, folks, here we go. So thanks so much for chatting. I was just listening to your record at the gym this morning.
Nice. Brag.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm curious about this. Like, as we jump in, like, do you care how people experience your music?
No, I mean, I think the curiosity is the main thing that, like, I love finding out how people experience it because, you know, sometimes when you're making it, you kind of wonder and you don't want to, at least I don't want to like cater to any specific thing. And so when you find out that, like, I remember one of our friends was like, oh my God, yeah, like same sort of thing. Like, I exercise to your music. And for some people, it's a very active thing. They like to dance. They like to exercise. For other people, it's a very sort of like headphone. I like to sit and be sad sort of thing. And I think you kind of see that, or at least we see that like from the stage very often, where we'll be playing a song and someone over here is crying and someone over here is dancing and these people are making out, and it sort of covers all of this ground that it's really special because you really never know how people are going to come at it.
Yeah, because I mean, I used to think that it was like I was almost a little bit embarrassed to admit to people that I like listen to some of their music at the gym. But I also listen to it in the car. But, you know, and I've said this, a bunch of people are going to DM me and hate on me as soon as I say this. Like, whenever I like really get into a record, I'll sit and listen to it. I have a DAC. I'll go lossless. I'll do as high of a res as I can. And I'll sit in that chair over there with my fancy overpriced headphones and my little DAC. And I just like lock in. And I'll do the album, you know, from start to finish. And it's funny because now more and more people that I talk to, they're like, yeah, you can listen to it from start to finish, but like, you don't really have to. You can just listen to this song or this song. And I'm like, when you made your recent your recent record, like, did you intend for it to be experienced, from beginning to end?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of like, you want to leave people open to it, to invest kind of as much or as little as they feel is natural. But for us, definitely when you finish recording the record, that's definitely not the end of the kind of creative process of it, because like sequencing a record is really kind of its own exciting challenge that I think I can often be sort of overlooked, but it's definitely something that we love kind of spending time on, and
thinking about the thematic rise and fall in an album, or thinking about how it will feel when you sit down with your record player and put it on side A and then put it on side B, like those halves of the record as sort of solitary units, then how they flow. All of that definitely plays a role in how we perceive the album.
Yeah, I often, when I'm trying to sequence records, I often think about it. There's like opening track, final track, but also like end of side A, beginning of side B. And those to me are sort of the signposts that you work around once you kind of settle on what that's going to look like.
Right.
And then, surprising yourself is like with this album, the final track list came together at like the very last minute.
What? No. Week in Your Light, like that had to have been immediately. You're like, okay, we're starting with this.
Well, that one was definitely as soon as it was finished in my head, I was like, that is on a very short list for first track of the album. I mean, particularly because thematically it is kind of the purest love song that the band probably has ever made, and I think on a record that is about the highs and lows of obsession or infatuation, I think to start with something very pure felt like the right move. Where it's like, you're recognizing for yourself that you love this person or this thing, and then from there things get kind of crazy. But there's definitely this one moment of just kind of like pure bliss that I think felt like a very appropriate way to open this album.
Yeah, I mean it's heavy and sonically too. As someone like I've listened, to all your stuff, all past 3 LPs, and this is like a very tight sonic, experience. Not that your other stuff was lo-fi or subpar in any way, but like this sounded really, really, I mean, the drums sound incredible. I mean, it's not overly compressed. The mix is it's very, very, very good. And I think as someone who's been a bit of like a music snob, in a good way, this album feels somewhat like timeless in the sense that like it could be something that you pulled out of like a parent's record collection. It could be something that you heard in a movie, or it could be something like now that's new. And I think that's really hard to do, especially with the type of music that you guys make that's like more synth based but I mean it's a very, very, very good record. And
thank you.
I
think part of to me a lot of that credit goes to our producer Nick Milheiser, who I think he really values.
He did LCD, right?
He's in the LCD live band.
Right.
He was like one of the 2 core members of Holy Ghost before that. Now he tours with LCD. But he just, I think the way that he works, he's not obsessed with something sounding. It's not like we want it to sound old, and it's not like we want it to sound like today. It's really just about kind of like getting to the emotional core of the song, and the way his studio is set up, it's just like a lot of vintage and analog gear. And I think that is one of the things that sort of makes it feel like it, like you say, that I mean, to me it's very cool to think that one might ask themselves, like, was this just pulled from an old record collection? I think a lot of that has to do with there's a very high noise floor on this record because it's running through all these old things,
right?
And this like old analog desk. I think that gives it a lot of kind of like charm and puts it within a sort of context. Because like I think a lot of records that everyone loves from back in the day, when you listen to them, like the silent moments are not actually silent. There's like a tape hiss going on, or there's some sort of buzz. And I think Wise Blood is a modern artist who also has a fairly high noise floor on a lot of her songs. And I think that is part of what makes them feel like they could have been drawn from any time.
I feel like people really yearn for those like technological artifacts, like whether it's a sound artifact or like when you're watching a film and it's actually shot on film and you can see those like
little speckles.
Yeah, the little speckles or like
the imperfections.
A quick cut.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
imperfections, they really speak to people in like in a subconscious way, not necessarily like something that you're actually looking for, but something that like is a calming thing in a way. It's like when you watch like a soap opera and there is like absolutely no imperfection. It is like too high def. It gives you like a feeling of unease and like a little too hyper real. And I feel the same way when I listen to like a record or a song that's like too pristine, too perfect.
Yeah.
I just feel a little weird about it. And I prefer those bands that use like whatever like analog gear gives it that sound, or, you know, who don't like re-record vocals over and over until they hit all the pitches perfectly. Or I just feel like that the imperfections are what make it human and what make it relatable.
So wait, how much overdubbing is on the record then?
I mean, in terms of vocally, there's not a ton.
Really?
Like we would only go through, I would only sing the songs all the way through a handful of times, like 3 or 4 times. And there was, I'm not even someone who's like morally opposed to like if I like just miss a note, like I'm not morally opposed to like just getting it right.
Yeah.
But Nick is, and he was like, absolutely not. Like, you're going to sing it in the way that, like, for it to be perfect, might even make it so that it impacts less. Like reach for it and like give yourself to it. And like, you know, if we wanted to go back and like repunch a line here and there,
sure.
It was always in pursuit of capturing the emotion rather than capturing kind of perfection in the sort of like traditional
technical sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. For listeners who are maybe like are curious about this, like mini records say like anything that's like Max Martin, right? It's like everything is like overly perfected. There's pitch correction on almost every single thing. Stuff is syncopated. Stuff's auto-tuned. But like I think in, you know, when people listen to say like old Dylan or whatever, and you're wondering like why people love that so much, I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's more of it's the human element of stuff. But I think in the type of music you do, which is very, you know, unhuman in the sense of doing things that are synths and
like drum machines.
Yeah, and drum machines and stuff like that. It's very, very refreshing. And I think like that's some of the stuff, you know, that I was listening to over and over and over again. Especially what's the track? I think it's called Sightseer.
Yeah.
It's like stand out of the album. I mean, like over and over and over again. Like I'm like lifting weights and I found myself like starting to cry. And I'm like, what the hell's going on with me? I'm like, I gotta go back to Megadeth or something for a second. But it was
probably all the steroids you're taking.
No, I don't do anything. I drink milk.
All the steroids they're giving the cows.
Oh,
producing
busted.
The milk.
Yeah. That's probably it.
Yeah, I cried when I wrote that song.
Did you?
To paraphrase Steely Dan. Yeah, which it doesn't happen very often, but yeah, that is definitely like a very special song to me within the album. And but yeah, like you were saying, I think especially with synth music, and this is a lesson we sort of learned live as well, where for the longest time I wanted like absolutely everything to go off without a hitch, no mistakes. I wanted like to go perform and everything's just so like right. And like that's just never ever gonna happen. And I think especially with synth music, you know, people want to, or at least I, as a music fan, I like going to a show and knowing that what I'm seeing is really kind of like happening. And especially with synth music, there can be a lot of sort of mystery in that from an audience perspective. And now at this point, like we no longer search for a perfect show. We search for a show that feels alive, and that usually involves a lot of mistakes or technical errors.
Or at least one.
At least, I mean, almost any time I pick up a guitar, you know that something is coming.
What's something that happened recently, other than getting sick all the time?
Well, actually, this tour we just finished in Europe was the first one that I have gotten through without getting sick in any way.
Congratulations! God bless you.
Thank you. It felt amazing. And because there's really like no greater, as someone that I feel like a sort of core tenet of my personality is I hate disappointing people. And
So you grew up religious?
to be
Yes.
Welcome to the show. I'm a pastor's kid too. Here we go.
Yeah. I like as a singer to be feeling like you're always about to lose your voice because you're sick. It just injects a lot of anxiety into touring sometimes. At our London show, we were playing our song Across That Fine Line, which is like kind of one of the only songs that has a sort of like my version of like a guitar solo in it. And just the way the venue was structured, it was sort of a 2-tiered stage, and we were on the upper one. And our bass player Alex kept like during little like flourish moments, sort of like as a bit, he would like step down onto the first one to like show off that like and he was like, dude, you gotta try it. You gotta go down there during Fine Line. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do it. But I did. And I stepped down. I'm in this like prime position, and I come in for the solo just totally on the wrong string, and it sounds terrible. And I was like, of course, this is when this is happening. When I'm like, here I am to show off, and I'm wrong.
How much do you think people cared about that stuff? Because I always wonder about that too.
I mean, maybe there are some people that care, but I think
in that moment we were all having fun. Like,
yeah.
Us three and like everyone that we could see was just having a good time and laughing and dancing.
Because I think people, would rather, like I've definitely also, I have, back when I wanted everything to be perfect, when I would mess up like that, I would be like beating myself up so much.
Oh.
And I think as an audience member, you can see that, and I think it makes people more uncomfortable than I think if you're like, man, if you can laugh it off and like people want to have a real experience with you. And
making mistakes is human, and it humanizes you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so years and years ago, I saw, do you guys remember Damien Rice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw Damien Rice in concert, and this is like the height of like the Volcano tour, and it's Lisa Hannigan, and he's with the Frames. Frames is one of my favorite bands ever. They're like, if you want some crazy crying music, dive into the Frames. Anyway, he starts playing, and he's going into something, and there's some issue with like his guitar tuning, and he stops and he starts. And like if you see live shows, it happens with bands on occasion where they just start again, but then like you saw him get angry, and then you saw him like walk over and try to say something to someone. And I don't know if someone was being scolded. I don't know what it was. He could have been having a bad night too, right? But it was so awkward that like I wasn't able to enjoy the song versus a different experience. A friend of mine goes and sees Seal, right? Like, and
the Seal,
right? Kiss from a Rose, right? And Seal has this like guitar player, young guy. I don't know, and he's not that good. He's having some trouble keeping up with the perfection of Seal's band, and he's not doing great. And so Seal calls him out as he's doing great, and is like, "Man, listen to that guitar solo. That sounds so good."
Aww.
And like basically cheers the dude on, and the whole audience is like, fucking guys playing with Seal, kicking ass. And it turned into this like incredible moment. And it's funny because I feel like, like what you were saying, like Aidan with the imperfection stuff, that's the stuff that I love when you talk about like a memorable show. Like, yes, there's energy, yes, there's stuff like that, but when things feel, I remember going and seeing this band, and they would go out, and every night their set was the same. They started, which is fine. I mean, you're in a like performance groove, but they basically just played the album from start to finish and then walked off. No audience banter, nothing different. And it was just like, did I just listen to a record with someone, showing it? Like, it's tough to find that line, because I do understand that like what you make is art, and you want to show the art the way that the artist intends it, but music can constantly evolve. So I don't know.
Yeah. And I think also that's something that the sort of like the pandemic and lockdowns, I think highlighted for us, was that like for the first time, not being able to actually perform the music. I was like, oh, this is like really, it's like a distinct art from the writing and the recording of it that I think I didn't appreciate. I always thought of it previously as just, I wrote the songs, now I'm going to show you the songs. And to appreciate that the sort of physicality of it, and the way that each night is different in its own way based on your own mood and people in the audience and how they're feeling, really sort of made it so when we came back from lockdowns. I think we were all just so grateful for the live experience and wanted it to become something that didn't feel like canned. Because I think we often, most nights we switch up some aspect of the set list, but I think for some people, like, to do the same set list every night is fine because they are letting each, the crowd and the venue, everything can change your relationship to that thing that
touche. Okay.
On paper is like remaining the same every night. But I think I've definitely been to shows where at the end of it, I was sort of like, if I went and saw this tomorrow, I think it would be pretty much exactly the same. And that's not particularly thrilling to me. And like, when I go to see live music, I want some kind of thrill. And I want to feel like they're as present as I am.
When we saw LCD Sound System during their residency, when they do so many shows in a month at Brooklyn Steel.
One of the breakup tours or whatever.
We've seen them do that a few times. And every night there is an element of like, something is going to break, something's going to go wrong. And you're going to watch them like scurry around to try to like locate the issue on stage. And like, that's just a part of the show. Like, it's not like it really takes you out of the music. It just sort of makes you realize and appreciate how live the music actually is. And also they're really funny about it. Yeah.
And it's sort of, it breaks down the barrier,
right.
between the artist and the audience, because, you can't, it's hard to stay all sort of like puffed up and like, I am the artist. Look at me on stage when things are just falling apart.
Right.
And so, you go more into this, like, look, guys, I'm just a person. And, I think, that sort of allows everyone to just kind of like let their hair down and be in the moment.
Do you feel like that's happening more though? Because you're playing bigger and bigger and bigger venues. Like, this is not Baby's All Right anymore. Like, this is like, you guys are really doing it.
We are, but I mean, I think, it almost becomes more valuable to have imperfections and sort of like bonding moments with the audience in larger and larger venues, because
you feel further from them.
Yeah.
Like physically further from them. When you're like in a Baby's All Right situation where you're like, 2.5 feet raised above them and they're like right in front of your face, it's easy to make a connection and to feel like you are experiencing something as a group. But it's a lot harder when you're like in a venue with like a 6-foot high stage and a barricade that puts them, 5 feet further away from you. So it's just like very difficult to like actually feel that closeness. So when you can like stop between songs and like talk to them or
stop in the middle of the song and be like, I think we have to start over.
Yeah. Just embracing all those moments of like trying to connect makes it something that is actually memorable rather than just another night on tour.
Yeah. Especially with, because you don't travel with a ton of gear. No?
No. It's a kind of one of my great points of pride, actually. So
go on.
It's the logistics of how concise our setup is.
It's right there. It's in 4 little cases. That's our setup.
I mean, they're not that little. There's like
those are dope cases, though, man. That looks like some stuff from Jurassic Park. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's like those and a guitar case that can hold my guitar and Alex's bass.
That's all.
And so, what we bring on tour has evolved and sort of gotten better over the years, but it's always within the context of like what can fit in these cases.
Ooh, okay.
It's
We're getting some restraints here. Okay.
It's exactly. It's like, and like the gear we have is like, it's like great because I spent a lot of time trying to find the right things that, that we were able to travel with. Cause a lot of, especially, in the past couple of years, I think you've seen a lot of bands cancel tours because they were like, look, there's just no way I can like go to Europe for a month without losing a huge amount of money. And I think to me, that's not like acceptable. And so
it's
people
okay.
have to do what they like. It's not acceptable for us. Like,
it's not something that you're willing to accept. as a reality.
Right. And so like the fact that like we can fit all this into like an Uber XL and like get to the airport and then like at the airport, like, you know, I'm a Delta Sky Miles member.
Hey,
and
there
so
he is.
I have like an extra bag. And so that makes it so we're not incurring all these baggage fees where like a lot of bands, they tour so much stuff that
there's no way
you're blowing all of your money before you even get on the plane, just checking all your bags. And like to be able to be
lean and mean.
And, there's a documentary about the band, the Minutemen, called We Jam Econo. And that's always been something that has stuck with me, that like what's important is getting out and performing for people. And
however you can make that happen.
Yeah, I want to be as effective as possible in doing that and not have to not see our fans because there's some like logistical or financial holdup that stops us from doing that.
I feel like though there's a tiny bit of disconnect between how big your band is getting and what you realize. Because you're talking about this like you just mentioned like Minutemen and stuff like that, and like these like tour hacks, which I think makes sense. I think a lot of people there's not, especially in this weird prolonged P&L phase of albums and, you know, social media and all this stuff. There's not so much I'm air quoting this word, like the overnight sort of success anymore. Like you're grinding it out, you're doing a lot of that stuff, but you're steadily growing. And I think like pretty soon it's going to be like, yeah, well, we have this, but then we have a truck and that's got all of the visual stuff. And that's, you know.
Well, I mean, I think, we try and take everything sort of like one step at a time and ask ourselves whether, I think there are a lot of sort of things that people see as natural steps in a band getting bigger that I think can be sort of like questioned in a way that I think I often try to question my own sort of, sort of like consumerism or excesses. But, you know, like we bought some of our own lights that fit in a case like this. So especially like we can bring some lights of our own. And I think especially with like the visuals are definitely, I think, the next step that's the next step I would want to invest in rather than sort of like adding a whole bunch of gear to Aidan's synth setup that makes us like double the amount of stuff that we have to bring around. Like someone who really knows the set, who's on lights is, I think, a really exciting addition. And sort of that's the next place where you want to, or where we want to kind of invest, because I really don't know anything about that world, but like, you know, good lights when when like that certain moment of the song hits.
Oh, hell yeah.
And that moment happens. It does. And the lights don't even have to be complicated. Sometimes it's just, you know, I when we saw LCD, it's like the lights were fairly old school, but when the whole stage just goes like red when they hit the chorus of the song and everyone in the place loses it. And
it's just like simple moves done with
like taste.
Finesse.
Yeah, finesse.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the next like very exciting phase to me is augmenting the sort of musical nature of what we're doing with
those aesthetics.
Yeah, with those visuals.
Attention! Do you even loop wheel, bro? Do you know what loop wheel garments are? Look, I actually didn't, honestly. I was just like, oh, it's a flex, or it's this special kind of cotton. But no. The folks at Standard & Strange dropped a ton of incredible knowledge bombs and their incredible loop wheel tee, made in Japan, of course. Back to loop wheel. It's an antique circular knitting machine that relies on gravity and uses spring-bearded needles. What the heck? Do you even get it? Look, all you need to know is it's dope. It's better if you want to learn more. Visit standardandstrange.com/loop wheel and check out their new loop wheel tees. Your boy is partial to yellow because, you know, duh. But the tees are fire no matter what color. The fit is spot on, and it's a classic tee that looks like it's from every era, to be honest with you, and fits like a dream. And it's from the folks at Standard & Strange, the shop that helps you own fewer, better things, run by industry vets who are focused on incredible product from incredible vendors. And look, if that's not your vibe, check out some of their huge offerings of Japanese denim or boots. But listen, the shirts, fam, the shirts. So, if you want to know more, visit standardandstrange.com. Loop wheel, baby. That's standardandstrange.com.
acoustic.
Yeah, because you tour with a front of house person.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a step up, you know?
That was
Yeah.
a huge moment for us to like, because the first tour we did coming back from lockdowns, we did not have our own sound engineer, and just like going on like a 30-day long tour and, you know, coping with like different like sound
like the acoustics of all the different
right.
rooms.
Like it's really hard. It can make it like almost impossible to do that when you don't have somebody behind the board who knows your music very well.
Right.
And it was like taking an emotional toll, like for real, an emotional toll. So after that, we were like, all right, it's time. We've put it off long enough. We'll invest in bringing another person on tour. And that was like the greatest decision we ever made.
Yeah, because it's also, especially, you know, the sound man that we use most often, our friend Skinny. It's one of my favorite things is when you see, you know, people will have their like Instagram stories after a show, and every once in a while someone will like pan over to him, and like he's behind the board and he's like grooving as though he was on stage and like tweaking things.
There you go.
He has control of the like we bring like an external delay that he runs my vocals through, so he can just do all these like crazy delay throws whenever he wants on my vocal.
So there's like a level of creative artistry there that we love to see, and like gets us pumped while we're playing as well.
Yeah.
It feels like, you know, another member of the band, really.
On the gear stuff, have you kind of moved away from most of the analog things? I only say that is, so my dad used to be in a band, and he had all these like Moogs, and, you know, he had like an Opus 3 and all these cool things. And towards later parts of his life, he was like, oh man, they were the worst things to tour with. He's like, because, you know, you would have to tune them manually in some cases. And like, this is before cell phones, but like there would always be like RF issues with it. And so things would cut in and out, and they would be playing like not massive shows, but just like, he's like, none of this stuff was dependable. But, you know, and so even people I know that, you know, will tour with some of this stuff, they're like, yeah, we're going to use that on the recording and maybe we're going to go digital on the road. But I'm curious how you've approached that.
I mean, the synths that we use, they're pretty much all analog.
But I would say that the difference between what we use when we record and our live setup is that, you know, we used to use synths that I would have to do all the presets, and like some synths even that didn't have presets at all. And like dealing with that in between songs took so long that it like really like puts a halt to the energy in the room. And now we use like MIDI to change the presets on those synths, and like that step up really helped like evolve the live experience, I think.
Yeah, because I think, you know, figuring out how, for the longest time, I really didn't understand anything about like getting synths to talk to each other.
That's an art. It really is.
And like, I'm still not great at it, but, you know, to go full like nerd report, we have like the MPC Live 2 is sort of the brain of the live setup. And that's telling all the synths, like, this is the song we're playing, so this is the preset you're supposed to be on. And, you know, it's sending MIDI notes to them so Aidan can just like twist the knobs and manipulate them in real time.
Oh, that's awesome.
But then it also has, you know, so we have the like Moog Sub 37. We have the Prophet 6 desktop size, so it doesn't have like its own keyboard. So we can have a smaller keyboard that controls it. We have the Dave Smith Tetra. And then the only like straight up digital synth is there are like digital synths built into the MPC Live 2. And so those can be played as well. And, but yeah, like it's mostly an analog setup, and things chosen because they have presets, and because you can not spend all your time trying to like get all the knobs in just the right position before you jump into the next song.
Like my set lists used to be so like, they look like manic notes written like, by someone who's lost their marbles. But like I had so much to do in between each song that I was always sweating. I was always like, am I going to do this right? Is it going to sound right? And then like sometimes we'd start to play a song and I wouldn't have gotten it right. And this was before Ian made his emotional change to accept flaws in shows. and he'd just be like so torn up about it. So yeah, it was a really tough period. I would say that things are a lot easier for me now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I saw The Smile.
Sick.
And it was crazy because So Johnny Greenwood's like playing these songs, and they just pushed out a rig for him to do one song, and he goes, does this stuff. And then I saw like a roadie just pull the rig away, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like that he has that on tour for one
song. That's bizarre.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild.
It's because in my head, like I think that there's an efficiency stuff too that I think when people, if you're a huge band, if you're Kiss, right, your budget in some cases can be limitless because you're selling tickets for like $2,000, right? And you can do all these things and you can do that, but I think that there's a real art of, like you were saying, with like kind of working with constraints, still making an amazing live show, which I've yet to see you all, but from many people, and I've seen you guys live on video, it's fucking insane. I don't know how you maintain this energy. It's incredible.
Well, it's like I'm listening to the music at my version of the gym.
I listen to it more than the gym. I'll be clear. It's not just when I'm on this.
No, I know. But I'm just saying. I'm like, there's like a lot of like squats involved in front of a lot of people as I am performing.
Yeah. And, and this, obviously, to bring this up too, I mean, so both of you, you're married to each other. The dynamic on the road, that's got to be a lot easier, right? Of just having you two to lean on each other.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like you have all of the best moments together, but then when something does go wrong, it's really nice to have the person who will like pick you up when you're down there, right there with you, to like experience things with you. I feel like I don't know where I read this, but it was like there's some sort of natural balance when you're in a relationship with someone where like you could be having the worst time, but when you see your person having the worst time, like an instinct clicks in you and you like are there for them.
Yeah, you like buck up to take care of each other.
And that really happens between us at times on tour. Although I will say the fact that Ian was healthy the entire last tour really helped. It was a lot fewer lows and a lot more highs.
What's the tour regimen? Like, what's the day in the life of your tour in terms of what you're doing to kind of stay sane on the road?
I mean,
well, our health regimen has definitely tripled, quadrupled down. Ian spends like 20 minutes each morning, like
taking vitamins and herbs and mouth sprays and
whoa.
Because at some point I was so sick of being sick on the road that it was like I went around to all my friends, especially friends who would tour, and I would be like,
"What are your secrets?
Like, what's your thing you do?"
Like throat coat.
Right, and I would just whatever they said, I was like, I now also do that, and so I just kept like adding stuff, and I don't even know. Maybe only one of the things is actually being the thing that is effective, but
can't go back now.
Yeah, I can't go back now.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I think that besides the medicinal aspects of it, it's like taking time to listen to music that you like.
Yeah, like sharing music with each other in the van.
Listening to an audiobook together or a podcast together. Yeah, just like talking and socializing with each other and like having laughs together. Also like trying to eat something delicious every day.
Yeah. Trying to like whenever time allows see, we love the sort of like biggest ball of yarn in the world, sort of like
the roadside attractions.
Yeah, anything where you can like jump off of the beaten path a little bit.
Which like in Europe is like, a castle.
Yeah.
And in America is like Abraham Lincoln's second childhood home.
Which is still cool. But,
so you went?
We did.
Yeah, we did.
Where are the Midwest states then? Aidan, you're from the Midwest. Where's the love?
We're playing Kansas City, which is my hometown, at the Record Bar, which we've played almost every time. Maybe every time we've played
every
Kansas
time.
City.
Or no, not every time we played.
Because it's something very special to Ian and I. We met at the Record Bar, like 12 years ago.
Location.
And then we're playing Chicago. That's actually one of our first shows. And
I mean, the first in Chicago, Shubas or no?
No, Metro.
Yes, we're playing Metro.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
Billy Corgan
Chicago.
all over the room.
But yeah, I mean, the tour starts in Pittsburgh, and it's just like Pittsburgh, Columbus, Chicago. I think this tour is fairly Midwest heavy.
Yeah.
Which we always try to do. Like,
I guess I was just impartial to St. Louis, but I don't even think I'll be here when you guys are here. I'm in New York. But
maybe that's why we're not playing it.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have played St. Louis before.
Yeah. It was a really good show. We also had the best Vietnamese food.
Yeah.
like ever in St. Louis.
It's really
interesting. It's a pretty good culinary paradise, I will say, especially for anything that's like there's really good Eastern European, really good Asian, South Asian, whatever. But I mean, every city's got their own bullshit claim to fame.
good.
Yeah, but that's because you're doing, Metro, that'll be a killer venue.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, seriously, I saw one of the Pumpkins like anniversary shows at Metro, and it's just
That's cool.
freaking, it was insane. Killer venue.
We've only ever had really fun shows in Chicago.
Yeah.
We've played all kinds of shows in Chicago. We played basement shows,
Garage shows.
Yeah, I think you're past that now.
I would love to see what would happen if we tried to play like a backyard party garage show.
It'd be sick.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if you guys ever were into Pedro the Lion, but like David Bazan basically like tours by himself. And you can just book him, and he'll just play your house.
That's cool.
It's like calling up Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Doesn't he have like the voicemail machine? And like that's how you get him to be in your movie. You just like call and be like,
"Oh shit,
pitch him."
That's amazing.
That's what I heard. That's the rumor, at least.
Oh, but yeah, like you just so he does these tours on his own. I think it's because he's at a level of his career where he's just like, look, I need to hit this number, and so he just goes on the road, and you book him through that. But I always think it's really interesting where like I do miss house shows. I get that like there's an experience that you want to deliver and that there's a certain thing, but because I think especially with like ticket fees and stuff like that over the years, people have whatever, because I'm trying to think who did I buy tickets to, and I was like, I just paid like $150, and they were like, oh
so
yeah,
infuriating.
they were like, well, we got maybe 50 of that, and I was like, oh, because that's
so
the thing
messed
is like, yeah, I mean, I have friends in the bands, and I'm like, no, fuck it. Like, I will buy your ticket. Don't list me. Like, let's, and they'll be like, hey, tell me what the ticket costs you. And then they're like, damn it, man.
We are on a perpetual crusade with our manager to fight. Like, whenever we announce a tour, we always try to get.
Yeah, because you're not a Live Nation band.
And I mean, it's like you sort of unavoidably end up playing Live Nation shows every once in a while. But we always try to have a sort of like pre-sale that is like through our website where they let us sell the tickets so that it's like fees are reduced and your email address isn't like, it like goes to us. So like when you can just like, we'll hit you up with the next time we're going on tour. And if you want to unsubscribe, that's fine. But like inevitably
they only allow you to sell like 50 of those.
Yeah.
So it's limited, but at least, it's a little step.
But yeah, we're always trying to be like, and this extra money that you're going to be charging our fans, like, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Like, why is that coming out? Because I mean, I think a lot of people, they don't understand that it's like not us doing that to them.
Right.
Like saying that the
weird
ticket is this and that, like, we're just going to be like pocketing all that money. It's like, that's not how it is. And
it's the same with like merch cuts in certain venues.
Which is super fucking despicable. Like, especially where that's where most bands will make their money. And when a venue has a merch cut, or you sign you sign a 360 deal with some label. I mean, it's just, it's like a Ferrari with a governor. Like, you can't ever reach maximum speed if you're going to have to, sell a $50 t-shirt that you make $5 on or something.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't know. I didn't intend for this to turn into a complaint session about touring. I apologize for that.
Okay.
On some of the like music that you were listening to when you wrote this record, do you guys have any records that you constantly revisit and go back to? Like, Aidan, you were talking about, say someone has a bad day, what do you put on to have a good day?
I feel like we're often putting on like Neil Young, Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
Or like a good oldies vibe, good classic 70s,
just like
California rock. The band, although the band sometimes makes everyone in the van cry instead of feel happy.
that did. Well, just on this last tour, we're like driving around Europe, and I was driving, and Aidan sitting shotgun, and she turns around, and me and our I like to call him our roadie. He does many jobs. Our bass player's brother John. She turns around, and we're both just sitting there with like tears coming down our faces as I think it was Rocking Chair by the band is playing. And she was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I was like, I thought that we were having a lovely sunny day drive.
Like, we are having a lovely drive.
But like that's a good cry. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because I literally have a playlist of songs that I have on there that will, there's like some Graham Nash stuff. There's Nick Cave. There's, that I'll put on and I am weeping.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's sometimes it just makes you feel very alive. But yeah, also I think if I'm trying to get like more like sort of like pumped up, I think the Remain in Light by Talking Heads was definitely an album that I was listening to a lot while working on this album.
Mhm.
And that it's sort of I feel like I have a sort of pantheon of like classics in my head that are always influences, whether or not those sort of like sonically work their way into the music. They like some records just feel very ambitious and you want to try to reach for ambition as well. And so it's like Remain in Light or Loveless by My Bloody Valentine, Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen, which actually a lot of these, including the next one, I think of Man Machine by Kraftwerk. I think those are most, if not all, 8-song records, which is also a dream of mine one day to make a record that's only 8 tracks long.
That was the mid-aughts hack, is you made an LP with 8 tracks.
Well, I mean, when you can do it and it really, Let's Dance by David Bowie is another 8-song record that's like amazing. Well, like when it's pulled off and you're just like, every single song on this is absolutely killer. And in the words of Sum 41, no filler. There's something so satisfying about that as a listener, where it just feels like each song is really just like a pillar that holds the whole structure up. But yeah, I think I just always go back to all of those records.
I sent this record to a friend of mine, your new record, and he was like, "Oh, dude, this sounds like the soundtrack to Labyrinth 2." And I was like, "Wait a second. Oh man, you're right." Because
that's amazing.
It wasn't like a dig at all. Because I was like, "Oh shit, like it's so good." I went and then revisited the Bowie songs from like Dance Magic Dance and all this stuff.
Chilly Down is an amazing song from the Labyrinth soundtrack. It's when it hits that chorus, it's undeniable.
What's the other one? It's called Underground. It's so good.
Yeah, what a soundtrack.
I know. It's freaking good. Do you all see yourselves like throwing some of your songs out there for like commercials and stuff, or is that like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think
however you can reach more people is absolutely valuable, I'd say. Unless it's
within
for
reason.
Like Black Rock or something.
Yeah, as long as it's not something that's like perpetuating
morally
some sort of hate or something. Yes.
We're waiting on our like car commercial payday.
Oh, it's got to be there.
Or like one thing that I've always thought would be really amazing is there's like there'll be like a song that gets used in like the season finale of some show.
Oh yeah.
That then just becomes like immortalized forever. I've always thought that. I mean,
I want to have the like blonde redhead Rick and Morty like perfect moment, like
yes.
Or like the
I was thinking the like what you say.
Yeah, the OC.
I always get this concept of like last episode of a season mixed up with just like the whole Garden State soundtrack.
Yeah, or like any song of Nick Cave's that they use in Peaky Blinders.
Oh my
just
God.
Like, you want to be associated with like some badass like moment that just like gets people really fucking pumped up.
Yeah, I mean, specifically if it can be something that is within a creative context, I think that is ultimately the most special thing, is to be able to feel like you've contributed to someone else's creative endeavor. Is really valuable.
When you write your songs, do you see movies? Or is there a movie or something in your head when you do it? Because a lot of your stuff does feel very cinematic.
I would say never specifically a movie, but I definitely do try. Like, I think I really love listening to movie scores, and I think that I'm often searching for the sort of like deliverance that you can feel when you're watching a movie and the music just comes in this way that totally overwhelms you.
That sort of payoff is
definitely
something to reach for.
What are your top movie scores?
I think The Thin Red Line, the Terrence Malick movie.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, that's just one of my favorite movies, full stop. But
whoa, connect the dots for me on that.
I mean, I have always been like, love like reading books about World War II and stuff. And so it's a World War II movie, but presented in a much different way than pretty much any other World War II movie I've seen, where it's really like the juxtaposition of the natural world and the human world. And it's got this like huge cast chaos, and it's just seeing all the different ways in which people kind of mentally suffer in combat and how everyone's trying to navigate it in their own way. And it's just, there's like a sort of ambient quality to the movie that's like punctuated by sort of intense violence and battle that really. Yeah.
It's a fantastic movie, and the Hans Zimmer scores. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. Aidan, what about you?
I think that the one film score that I ever had like on an iPod or like my phone, whenever you would actually download music instead of just stream it, was the My Neighbor Totoro soundtrack.
Oh,
the score of that film is like
so good.
It's really good, and I would just be like walking around, like walking to the train, like listening to those like movements. Really is like.
I mean, yeah, every
dreamlike
Studio Ghibli movie just has such a fun and great soundtrack.
Yeah, damn. I don't know. I always fall into Max Richter stuff, but it's usually I got into a Max Richter kick when I was running a lot, and I would listen to Max Richter, and I was like, I don't know, somehow pretending I was like running off to heaven or some shit, and then I'm like running and crying, or like Sigur Rós when I run, which is also it's like
you're just like ascending.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, here it comes. You think it's gonna go? It's like I'm gonna go faster now, and it's like half throw up. Yeah, no, I think that there's like, because when I was listening to your record, I was like, man, so much of this stuff felt like so cinematic. I think especially Sightseer too, like for me, where I was like, oh, there's this like breakdown here that really feels, like it was just something important, more important than whatever you were saying, which I think is one of my favorite qualities of your guys' music is that like I can listen to the lyrics and like actually be inspired by something, but I can also tune your lyrics out and still feel a heavy emotion. And I think that's just a really rare thing with a lot of bands.
I mean, I think I try to, a lot of the music that I have been drawn to throughout my life has been music where, like, I don't think I could tell you a single My Bloody Valentine lyric.
Yeah, me either.
Somehow I'm still singing along when I'm listening to it, but it's like I've always wanted to be able to deliver on the sort of like melodic emotional front first. And if you can, so often I've had the experience where I don't know any of a band's lyrics, but I'm like really moved by the music. And then I look them up and they're like really great lyrics. And you're like, well, now this thing that I thought I loved is now elevated to a level that I didn't even know I could reach. And so that's always sort of like the holy grail to strive towards, is to be able to deliver on kind of any front that a person would approach the music from. Because I know some of my friends are like, the first thing they do when they think they might like a song is look up the lyrics. Yeah. And so, you definitely want to deliver in that way. But for some people, lyrics really kind of don't matter at all for some listeners. Yeah. I
mean, I've had the opposite happen where like there's music that I've listened to and I'm like, oh, I'm going to look up these lyrics. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, oh, that was not the intention. Okay. Yeah. And I'm like, I'll just live in the ignorance.
Yeah.
But
what I like to do is, especially if I thought a lyric might have been one thing and then I'm totally wrong, is I'll be like, well, I'm just going to write down in my notes what I thought it was. And now that's going to be one of my lyrics.
Yeah. See, there you go. I think Paul Simon used to do that all the time.
Yeah. You gotta use whatever you can.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're starting to wrap here. You guys have been very generous with your time. Is there any sort of like, to kind of do like a quick rapid fire, from the synth game and from the gear game? Is there any sort of stuff that you've looked at that you think is, for some people like the holy grail is like the mini Moog, right?
Right.
Like, what's the over and under on some of this gear? Like, if you're, because I think you guys are at a level now too, where like people are like covering your songs on YouTube and stuff like that. What sort of stuff would you say to them in terms of making it all about the gear?
I mean, like for me, I would say the mini Moog was always my holy grail. And I recently just like bit the bullet and bought one. And because I mean, it's on, like in some form, it's on all of our recordings, whether that's like, sometimes it's there in like a software emulation. Sometimes it's there as like the Behringer clone. Like most often it's there as the actual genuine article. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, you know, as someone who is kind of always looking for inspiration, when I just look at it, I'm like, I want to make music with that thing. And so I think any piece of gear, it doesn't have to be fancy, but like anything that when you look at it, it just like fills you with a desire to create something, I think is worthwhile and something to kind of chase. And actually probably the less fancy it is, the better for your wallet.
Mhm.
But I definitely don't feel like now that I have that, I don't feel like I need to get a bunch of other insanely expensive things because that was my sort of holy grail. And
So you're out.
Yeah,
Game over.
I was right after I got it, I was having a call with my manager, and he was like, "All right, so like let's just generally talk through like what our goals are for the next year." And I was like, "Oh no, I have it. I got the mini mug." So like. And he was like, do not play with me. Like, don't say that to me.
You're like, no, we're good. There's no other thing to aspire for.
Yeah.
Got the gear. What about you, Aidan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a real noob, really. Like, still to this day, I don't really know much about synthesizers, but I do love playing the subsequent 37 that we use on stage.
Yeah.
It's like, it was easier for me to learn than most other synths, and like, I still feel really like inspired by it when we're playing live, and like, I can always find like a new like twist of a knob that like makes a moment in a song something like really special. So I would say that one is like, you know, I wouldn't call it underrated, but I would say I rate it highly.
Yeah, is there any gear that's overrated? Like, I will say the Line 6 DL4, which I mean, I remember back in the day when I used to play more, it would break all the time. And so like like Bradford Cox of Deer Hunter had 4 that he would carry because they would all, I mean, it was such a good pedal because you could loop, it was a great delay pedal. It had tap delay, it had tap loop, all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But it would always break. Like Leslie Feist had a bunch that she would tour with. So all these people would buy tons of these pedals because you could not trust it ever on the road.
I would say the SPD SX.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
So that's the thing that like in any modern drummer will have like the drum pad that's like just like a big square that's usually either like where a tom would be or it's like on the side kind of next to a floor tom. And when it works, it is great.
The Roland sampling pad. I know exactly what this is. Yeah.
But it's one, and I think they're putting out a new one, but like it's been the same thing for like years and like no one else has topped it, but it's just like, I feel like there are so many glitches that can happen with it, or like misfires, or like you hit 2 pads at the same time and they both cancel each other out. And you're like, everyone tours, like we don't tour with one anymore because now we use the MPC to like have, if we need like samples and stuff, but
yeah, MPC Live 2, I rate it.
Yes.
That shit.
It can have its own issues, but it's an amazing machine. But I think I would just be so sort of like flabbergasted that like the SPD is used by, whether it's like a band playing at like the local dive bar or at like, you know, Wembley Stadium, like that's the piece of gear that is like, I think the most common through line between bands of every level. And when we used to use it, there would just always be problems and it would blow my mind. But I think they're coming out with a new one, and I wish everyone that uses it great success. And you know, maybe it will work its way back into our live setup one day in some way. Who knows? But
don't put that on me.
Well, Ian, Aidan, thank you very, very much for your time. This was great. I'm really, really, really grateful that we got to chat. Congrats on the record.
Thank you so much.
It was great to meet you. I'll see you. Bye.
Likewise. Nice
Great
to meet you. Thank you.
All right, that's it for this week's episode. Catch Nation of Language on tour right now and their new album, Strange Disciple, wherever you listen to music. All right, folks, see you soon.
obsession, suddenly a different shade. Walk me home and walk away. Too far along to operate. Don't offer me this measured attention. End the cycle. I'm not stuck